Okay, Samrit has a question here. Dear Ajahn, how to deal with after effects of bullying and the person who is bullied? It's not something I've really thought much of. The after effects, well, certainly one wants to guard against what might be typical unskillful reactions, um, anger, and ill will in particular. I suppose the more threatening or violent the bullying is, the more one is tempted to generate and harbor ill will. Feels very justified, but it's not a skillful route. One wants to be very careful there. So, and then put forth effort really to try to resolve it internally in one's own mind. So, uh, I would reflect and try to generate some sense of patience and forbearance and goodwill towards that person, even though they're acting in harmful and unskillful ways directed at oneself. We're talking about you being the victim of bullying. And reflect. It's good to reflect that people in some sense are like a prisoner to their conditioning and their karma. People are not free. And that's not to condone unskillful behavior, but it is useful for you to sort of adjust to the fact that we have to live in the world and witness and be sometimes even the victim of unskillful behavior and very unskillful behavior. And anger is never justified. It's always unskillful, and it always has unskillful resultants. And ill will is a very pernicious, poisonous form of anger. And so one needs tools to help protect oneself from generating unskillful thoughts and emotions, and even worse, speech and action in the face of meeting the unskillfulness that we find in the world. And as for how to deal with it externally, one will be in a much stronger place if one can right oneself and ensure that one is not coming from a place of anger or ill will. And then, you need to use your wisdom and discernment about the whole of the situation, what's truthful, what's timely, what your own intention is in seeking redress, what the potential, practically, what is the potential for redressing some sort of wrong or situation. And then based on the answers one comes up reflecting on those things, then put forth effort, even if it's uncomfortable. So I don't, one can easily sort of take the injunctions not to harbor anger or ill will and the injunctions to be equanimous and patient with apathy or inaction. And I don't read it that way. True loving kindness includes all beings, yourself and others. And in relationship and in our families and the various groupings that we find ourselves in society, unskillful action has to be corrected for and challenged. So, but one has to do so wisely. So, and sometimes one is not maybe the most effective or in the best position to redress the unskillfulness or the wrongs of others. And so, in that case, then you need to be clever about maybe finding somebody or some other means that could address that. And then also have the wisdom to know when the conditions for redressing something are too dangerous to pursue. So in the monk's Vinaya, there's some very interesting guidance there. And, it would depend on the severity of what's going on. But there's instances where there's something unskillful going on in the community, somebody's misbehaving, even factionalism, or a group is moving towards schism or agitating towards schism. And there's certain instances where the Buddha's the Buddha's guidance that's in the Vinaya is like, if you realize that it's going to create further, likely more violence or more strife, and that the conditions aren't such that it can be skillfully redressed, there is an appropriate kind of place for what they call covering over with grass, or just setting something aside for the time being. So this idea that you always have to correct every wrong is a bit misguided. One needs to use wisdom and discernment. And again, we don't want to put ourselves in the unfortunate position of thinking that we can control others or control the world through always doing something or saying something. Karma takes care, and you do not want to sit in judgment or have to be the enforcer for the world. But also, you don't want to fall back on this position of just passivity and inaction. You need to use your wisdom and discernment, and discern what the conditions allow for. And then, even if it's uncomfortable, pursue that, focused on the good, and with a heart of good intention. So